the button.
Did we lose Tim?
I think we did.
I think he froze.
Are we live? Just the two of us?
I think we're live.
Okay.
We have been joking that hopefully this is not going to happen, that we're going to lose Tim again. But I think we did. Shall we start with the introduction?
Yes. Do you want to go first, Anita?
Yeah, I can do that. So I think we made a joke that last week when Tim had this session with IBM, with Nada and Ryan, there was a outage at the office and they lost him. So we were joking that hopefully this is not going to happen, but it happened. So my name is Anita Vesely, and I'm leading social media at Ericsson, overseeing the full scope globally. And here with me, we have Tressa from our business area Digital Services.
Hi, I'm Tressa Dvander. I work with Anita in Ericsson, and I work on the business area called Ericsson Digital Services, focused on executive communications and influencer marketing for that business area. And we're missing Tim, who is our moderator for today. So we're just going to chat until hopefully he joins us in a moment.
Absolutely. And I think what he really wanted us to cover is really talk and share about our experience working with influencer marketing, how we started, how we are also working together with our employee thought leadership or internal experts and the influencer community. So maybe we can start with that one. I take the role of Tim for now, Tressa, and also knowing that whenever we at Ericsson, when we started really working with the influencer community and influencers, it was you who started it from a business area perspective. So maybe you should just talk us through that, how we started.
Yeah, sure. So actually, I don't think I was the first with influencer marketing. I think it was our colleague Bedad who was first to dip his toe in the pond of influencer marketing. But I moved to the business area in 2017, and he had set up 4 key influencers in the technology space. So we're talking B2B, social media influencers, we should probably clarify. So not the Kim Kardashians, advertising, makeup, people who are actually in the technology sector, some of whom have actually come, from jobs as data scientists and then moved into the influencer spectrum. So very technologically advanced, we'll say influencers, just to put it in perspective. And he had invited 4 of them to our Ericsson studio, which is a fantastic and has since been upgraded location to showcase all that we work on, all our technologies. And I had 7 days to prepare for this, as you well remember, Anita. So sort of thrown in at the deep end of influencer marketing, but I think that is how you learn. So we had Ruben Cohn, Lillian Pearson, also known as Big Data Girl, or Big Data Gal, Ronald Van Loon, and Des Blanchfield, along with the team at Tech Mode. So Chelsea Andrews, shout out to you guys, and Beverly Eve. And I have to say, there was a bit of skepticism around that. Like, what are our influencers? How do we interact with them? And so I think we have Tim back.
It happened again, Tim.
You know what? I'm cursed, and I apologize to everyone that's listening. Just when I hit go live on the LinkedIn Live, the internet cut from the whole of our office again. And I'm not joking. I can actually not believe it, but I know that you've continued as per your professionalism.
Maybe it was time, Tim. You should check if there's a timer that every second week at 4 p.m. GMT, the internet is just gone at your office.
Yeah, I really don't know what's going on, but the first rule of influence marketing is to make sure your internet and social media work, because I imagine that's a problem if it doesn't happen for you. But anyway, so you've introduced
But it's
yourself, and
2021. I mean, we have seen everything. You know, the BBC moment. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I think we have seen everything, and if no one is used to that, it's just like it's life of
yeah,
2021.
I would rather one of my kids comes in and makes a scene. Anyway, thank you so much for continuing. So where did you get to, and where should we pick up?
I interviewed Tressa with the first. We did the introduction, and
Fantastic.
I asked that maybe we should start with how did we start at Ericsson with influencer marketing. So Tressa was actually just in the middle of that when you could join back.
Okay. Yes. Continue.
I was
Tris, and I will.
telling about my story of my baptism of fire into influencer marketing. 7 working days before 4 major influencers. I mentioned them. Big Data Girl, also known as Lillian Pearson, Reuben Cohen, Des Bantriel, Rana Loon, were coming to visit the Ericsson studio, along with our tech mode crew, Chelsea Andrews and Beverly Eve. And basically, there was nothing in place. You know, people didn't really know how to interact with an influencer. What was an influencer? What were they going to be like investigative journalists? Were they going to try and do an expose? So there was a lot of sort of questions internally about just how do we manage this. So we took the approach of treating them as journalists, because basically that's what they were there for. It was an information gathering session. We were explaining sort of a behind the scenes of who is Ericsson, who works in Ericsson, introducing our thought leadership experts. So we were sort of ahead of ourselves in terms of realizing the importance of matching both the external influencer and the internal subject matter expert with purposes of lifting thought leadership. So we had a few goals in mind around key topics we wanted to cover, such as AI, IoT, 5G. And as Anita reminded me, Ericsson Digital was new on the scene in 2017. It was a brand that came out of an old Twitter handle and business area called Cloud, and another one called IT, and it was merged together and called Ericsson Digital. So it was also an opportunity to launch this new business area. And Tim, we learned a lot. We learned influencers are individuals, and they have different ways, like us all, of picking up information, of understanding information, and of activating information. So some people were live tweeting on Instagram. I'm thinking about Lillian. And some people were going away, looking for the long form content, the podcast opportunities, the video, the deep dive articles. And sort of what I learned on the go was how to cater for these needs. It was quite an interesting event.
Yeah. So what I love about that is what you're talking. Because people have no reference, so you treated them like journalists or analysts, like you would be briefing them, and because that's, I suppose, the most immediate adjacent reference that you have to important individuals that are coming to press briefings or launching a new brand. The interesting thing that I think is that journalists and like how PR have been working over the past 20 years, for example, has sort of commoditized into what they expect from an event and how they expect to be treated. But I guess with social influencers, like you said, they're all individuals and they all have a very different way of working. So yeah, I imagine that must have been really interesting, and especially as a steep learning curve to understand that they might not all expect the same thing.
No, exactly. And reflecting on that time as well, I remember we packed the agenda because I didn't want it to be boring. So we had like, here's a live demo, here's an interview with an executive person, and here is another subject matter expert, and here we're going to show you a demo, and wow, I got the feedback straight away, like, Tressa, stop. We need time to reflect, to absorb. We need time to live edit, live tweet, live activate. And that is something that has been incorporated into every single event that I've had with an influencer since then, especially if we bring them to MWC or digital transformation world. It's very much like, pops of time. So this is activating time, this is gathering content time, this is editing time, this is sort of bouncing ideas time, and very much working with them on a one-to-one basis.
And so have you found that when you're, because I think this is really interesting, going to the event detail. So now when you're managing influencers event, obviously it's a bit different from the virtual scene. Do you say, this is what we offer to influencers, or do you try and personalize every experience as much as possible? I imagine that's a bit difficult when you're scaling the program and you've got more external influencers as part of your partnerships.
But so it depends. I work a lot with Tech Mode. Shout out to the guys.
Yeah, wonderful, Beverly and Chelsea. I can see you. Thanks
and
so much for your comments, and Alex and Sally Eves and Jan as well is commenting. So hello to you all. Thanks for listening.
Thank you all. Yeah, so they're superstars, and we've worked with them for since 2017. We've kind of got a routine now whereby we look ahead, a quarter ahead. We work on a retainer basis, and we secure the people that we think are the best subject matter experts for the top campaigns, the launches that we wish to activate. So, for example, Kevin Jackson is really well known in 5G and network slicing. We worked with them recently to co-create something, Tim. So I think that's what you're getting at. We asked him, what do you think is out there in the market? What have you seen other people doing? Where there's a gap in knowledge? How do you think we can bridge that? It was actually a really interesting experience to co-create a whole series. Actually, we did 4 videos and a long form article to really explain report findings, actually it was, on network slicing. But from the ideation to the end activation, it was really a partnership. And it was really the beauty of working with influencers is this outside-in approach where they say, you know what, everybody's doing it like that. Why don't you do it like this? Or I think what would resonate more is to do it this way with a video or with a podcast, or just different ways of explaining. And it's like an extended arm of your marketing team.
I think that's brilliant. And a lot of people ask, how many weeks before should you start this conversation? I know that there's lots of business pressures, and a lot of tech businesses work quarter to quarter. So how many weeks before an event would you start the conversation with the influencer about what will best work for them and for your brand objectives?
It depends on the event. I'm going to let you know, Nick. I feel like I'm hugging.
No worries.
It depends on the event, I'd say, Tim. If it's MWC, I mean, that's huge. That involves a lot of logistical planning. If I would say 2 months minimum. If it's a smaller event and it's pretty straightforward, 4 to 6 weeks. But we do try, as I said, a quarter in advance and plan and allocate and have a strategy about how we want to activate something, whether that be a launch, an event, a campaign.
Yeah, I would actually like to get to the 3 to 4 months in like major activations. Whenever we know that we are, for example, working on a report or key trends that we are publishing, and what are the key trends, and really look for influencers around specific topics and really have those conversations that, okay, this is your area of expertise. This is the research that we have been doing. What is the best way to bring it to life? Obviously, the company is going to create a report. How can we tell the stories in a more authentic way rather than just creating our own 10 videos of the 10 hot consumer trends, for example, and really look into them, deep diver that what does it mean for Internet of Senses? Can we really extend augmented reality just way beyond what we see? How the other senses can be part of that? So I think there's still a lot to grow, and I think like in a global level, when I really look at it, some of the business areas, and obviously Tressa and some areas within Ericsson are really advanced or mature. And there are also, of course, other areas, just like everywhere else, where it's quite a late approach, 2 weeks before we launch something, and here's the messaging, and then can we get some influencers? And I was like, well, it's quite late for that, because other than just like repeating or amplifying the corporate messages, they cannot really be part of forming the message, the storyline, or create their own content to tell the stories. So obviously it will come to the maturity part of the whole company.
I think what both of you are talking, because we're getting straight into the detail, and that is brilliant. What I see when brands are starting to carry out influencer marketing programs or campaigns is that they tend to be in that 2 to 4 week period before the event and trying to find influencers. And what I love is that now that you've got established programs, from 2017, what I see is first of all, it's global, it's connected. I know you connect the employee advocacy and the influence marketing approach, which is amazing. A lot of brands haven't got that yet.
Yeah, and shout out to Tribal and Olilatica for that, because you guys are amazing and giving amazing help.
Thank you. And so there's Tech Mode, there's Tribal, we're helping you. There's obviously many wonderful people in your team, and you've been doing this for a number of years now. And so I think that the fruition of all of that is that you've been able to build in some lead time with the influencers and have the proper conversations to co-create, which is what the influencers want best.
Yes.
And actually, I think you've earned the right to have that, whereas other brands who are especially a quarterly, fixated in terms of what they need to achieve for particular events and campaigns, are often coming with like, this is already what we've created. Can you help promote this? And I think that's the big difference in what you're doing now. You can now be more strategic, and I'd love to hear a bit more, Anita, from you about the journey of how influence marketing, employee advocacy became programs and activities that got senior management buy-in. How did that kind of evolve over the past 3 or 4 years?
I mean, we started with employee advocacy 9 years ago. So that's when we had our first pilot, and then it went on global, and it was successful. How we also matured with that, and like with the company and different reorgs, and when it worked or not, and it was questioned, but it was still there, and we started to work with that. How we also evolved is really getting away from just employees resharing branded messages, which again comes back to it's similar to advertising, that is the same message delivered. So how trustworthy is that? And I think also like how social and also us who are on social media using it evolved, and sometimes we trusted the advertisements, and there come to a point when it was really about people to people communication, and what is the value that we can add, what is our take on it. And I think this is where the influencer community and how we work with influencers, again, when it's just like an amplification and repeating the corporate and sometimes boring B2B messages, is not necessarily the trusted one. And I think it comes to an evolution. As Tressa was really saying that influencers are human beings, and it's not a transactional relationship, but it's rather a partnership as an extended team member, that they within a company, even though that you really try this outside in perspective, it's really hard to get it. And I think and sometimes it's like how diverse your content is. How can you tell it from different perspectives? If our teams are just like certain way of thinking, we might not think about different angles. So this is when the influencer community, or also our experts who we train, and we say that you can have your own opinion. It doesn't necessarily need to be the corporate message or using the same jargons or wording. We should be able to tell complex stories in a really, really simple way. And two people actually just having a conversation, kind of like we do here. And if an influencer or an expert in their area can have that relationship with an internal expert, I think that's when really the magic happens. And they can tell the stories in a so much understandable way than usually we can do from a corporate perspective.
I love that, and I suppose we're talking about the control trust, pendulum, which, if you have one brand message, you have the control, and like everyone says this thing, and then we're gonna, not go through a PR reputational issue with that. But the fact is, obviously, no one trusts all the same message from thousands of voices. So, I almost describe influence marketing and employee advocacy like the sort of Bitcoin of marketing, where the sort of is decentralized, but people can personalize, the messages from the original content. And I think that you've done very, very well. And I think, as Beverly said on the chat, I think Ericsson just get it, and it's clear that you have done that. I would love to, and thank you so much to everyone that's joined. There's Diana, Lisbeth, Ian Gertler,
Mordechai and Jan. Hi, Jan.
There's loads of people tuning in. Please ask Tressa and Anita any questions, because I want to make this as interactive as possible for the people listening. So ask them, as difficult questions as you can possibly think up, because they're ready for it. Both of them have had a really relaxing week. No, I'm joking. They're full in project mode launches, so they've been very kind to give up their time today. So one question I had for you was just to describe a bit of the program detail in terms of, how many influencers, how many times do you tend to sort of create influencer generated content, or is this just like organic, like always on? How I know that you are helping enable lots of exec leaders develop their social accounts. It would be great to understand, how many people, how many countries, just what the main components are of the program.
Nisha, do you want to go?
I can start, because I usually have like the global view, which is like different maturity and how we work. Our internal programs are always global, of course, as usual with a huge company like Ericsson in so many countries and so many areas. Sometimes the focus is on different perspectives, and some of them are more mature, some of them are not. We are continuously working on strengthening executive communication, our internal experts or employee thought leadership, and how we train and educate and coach them to really start to create their own content, or whenever they are still not comfortable doing that, it's really a great opportunity to look for external experts and co-create that content piece when they feel more comfortable. We always try to really look into the bigger picture, because we have seen examples when companies were working with influencer and pairing that influencer with different executives and co-creating videos. However, the influencer was active on Twitter with no LinkedIn presence, and the executives were on LinkedIn without Twitter presence. So the communication and the natural flow was really not working. And those are the teeny tiny details, maybe. What is also important, that how can you continuously create the content, because that's when it becomes from a partnership to a long-term check-in. And sometimes one partnership leads to another, and I think Tressa has some great examples to follow up on that one. So we are continue to expand, and I think we work across different countries, different expertise, looking into some of the future technologies, the tech influencer community, also around the future of work. We know that Ericsson is also challenged that how do we go back to the office, how managers will work with half remote or hybrid models. What does it mean for hybrid events? We know that some events will start to be back in face-to-face, but some part will be also digital. And I think influencer communities and also our internal experts have huge potential how to really be part of those conversations and telling not just the tech story, but other parts of the stories, which are really, really relevant for all of us today.
Great. Thank you so much. I love that point about the LinkedIn, Twitter, when you're trying to create the organic conversation, but they're not, on each other's channel. Like it must have been something. It must have been something that you thought, oh, magic, and then, oh no, we need to fix this, but it's not overnight. Tressa, you're gonna
I was just gonna pick up on what Anita was saying. I mean, one thing that has come out of having a long-term partnership and a long-term relationship is you get to know what people are interested in. So Dr. Sally Eves, she's really passionate about women in tech, and there was this launch recently. So there is a way of communicating your message without hammering home the marketing, messages. We can also be subtle and make the golden thread back to the key message. So an example of this is there was 4 ladies, Eva Hedfors, Ezra Norwell, and Monica Zetson, who were interviewing for a launch by Sally Eves. And I thought, whoa, there's 4 women in tech on the screen. I mean, you never see that. Let's do a women in tech series. And that's something that comes out of an organic relationship and a partnership, because I think people are afraid that everything you ask for, you have to pay, right? And it's not that case. When you have a long-term relationship, when you have an ongoing relationship with the influencers, there is an understanding that you can co-create content that is mutually beneficial. And that also goes to the knowledge sharing side of things, because they also want to be seen as leaders in their own field. So if you can furnish them with the latest industry news and analyst reports, that's also increasing their knowledge on the market.
Yeah, I love that point. And organic engagement and community building is so important. And I love what you said there. It made me think about there was a tech brand that 4 or 5 years ago brought an influencer who's a female influencer to an event, a customer event, and the influencer walked in, saw that it was 4 men on stage, and walked straight out of the event. And the person said to me, well, I think that's a really interesting learning. I'm not going to do that again. And now it's great that you're putting on events where there's 4 women talking about tech, and things have changed a lot over the past 4 or 5 years, which is great to see. So I think there was a question from Christopher Isaac here saying, I understand the value and the practice, but I wonder how you internally manage to get sign off on business cases. Does it always need a sort of ROI figure on it? So I'd love to talk about measurement and also how senior management have maybe sort of changed their perspectives on, or how you've educated them on what influencers add to the Ericsson objectives.
I think it always depends on what is the main objective, and if you look at it from an overall global level, and where I get the overall buy-in, that we need to work more with the influencer community, is something that I always keep referring to, the analytical network map, because I think it just brilliantly showcases that these are the key topics that are important for Ericsson overall, whenever it's brand awareness, share of voice, or down the funnel. And are we as a brand or some of our in-house experts, are they part of that conversation? And if not, that's a clear way. And I can also show that, oh, look at the competitors or other brands who are part of that. And then it's easy way to showcase it to executive, what it means, other than going into that, what is an influencer? Going through the same learning curve. So those are, I think, sometimes the learnings that we also got along the way, that how you phrase or how you showcase it to others. It might be depending differently on executives or campaign managers. But really showing it. Obviously, we have KPIs, and I think Teresa, you can go through that where we started and how we also refined them. But I think sometimes there are also so many other benefits. What we and Teresa is amazing, highlighting some of them, and I have no idea that how she does it with all the reporting and pulling out that the tiny details which make a big impact. Just my story, that how the influencer community actually helped me to get the best talent to my team. I think it was back in May when I created a video. We were looking for a social media strategist. And most people believe that you obviously need to share it on LinkedIn, and that's where you're going to recruit people. So I did also an experiment. That was the first time I did a video, because I still need to get through my thing is that how do I look on video and creating it.
You look great, Anita. Both of you look great. I'll just give you an extra give you an extra confidence boost, so you can do many more videos.
I did that video and I shared it on LinkedIn, Twitter, and also on Instagram. And on Twitter, where the influencer community is, they started to lift it up. And some of the tech influencers who are also part of this live now, they lifted it up, they shared it. It's like, my video got like almost 18,000 views. It was like, oh my God, what happened? And I had less than 1,000 followers. And then some of them really took an effort. They reached out to some of their contacts. And actually, Diana Adams suggested someone. So I got in contact with him, and that's when the story started. And Mordechai is now part of our team. So
fantastic.
I think it's just like some of the things that we would never, ever thought that how we can work with the influencer community, and it's just like really securing the best talent regardless where they are based. So that has been an amazing experience for me, and that's just like invaluable.
So it's because on the chat there's a lot of people, and Jan's talking about not everything is dollar focused, but it helps. And Ian Gertler is hi Ian, how you doing? Talking about external evangelism as being important as extensions of the team. So I think there's a really interesting point here that when you talk about the ROI of your mum, that you probably heard that before. You can't put that into dollar signs unless your mum gives you $1,000 every month, in which you and you don't have another relationship. Maybe you can, but most people can't. And so I guess if people always have to put dollar amounts to influencers when they give so much intrinsic value, is that because we're not educating senior management enough, or is it natural for brands, especially that don't have the buy-in that you now have in Ericsson, to say, okay, well, what's the business case? What's the ROI? I mean, what's your view, Teresa, on whether we should put dollar signs to influencer content, or like whether there's another way of showing value?
Yeah. So we work on a retainer basis. So in that way, I don't have to go cap in hand each time to executives, because it's part of the global strategy. I mean, as Anita said, the before and the after. The before, it was cap in hand, and now it's an integral part of the marketing mix. So
can I ask when that changed from the cap in hand to the just in the last couple of years?
I think, yeah, within the first year, I think we saw some amazing results. So, for example, I talked about when the influencers came to our Ericsson studio. I think it was a 3,000% increase in profile views, something crazy off the charts on Twitter. And then we had them subsequently at the MWC. Ericsson Digital grew 1,500 followers in 3 days on LinkedIn and on Twitter. I mean, that's phenomenal growth. So I think just showing that and showing this curve that goes like way up. Yes, they're vanity metrics, but they also show this is having an impact. Look at the potential impressions, look at the actual impressions, look at the reach, look at the people who engaged, who may not have engaged with our channel because they just, didn't know it existed. It was a new channel, but they're engaging with these influencers because they have resonance, they have reach beyond where we go. And one thing that I try and do, and Beverly knows this as well, is whenever we do a campaign, the rule is that 75% of B2B buyers use social media, right? So we've established that. We've all talked about that. I think Onilatica had a great report on that. My key showback to management is our leadership. Yes, we had all these vanity metrics. Yes, we drove X amount of clicks through to the desired CTA, whether that's a webinar sign up, an event registration, a PDF download, a video watch, whatever it is. But when the end customer engaged with the influencer content, for me, that's gold. That is, we have got to the person that we want to get to with the message. The message is resonating and they're engaging with that message. So that's like full
circle. Can you see that direct correlation of the end customers engaging with the influencer content?
Yes.
Can you see that and show that?
Yes, and that's when I get my buy-in. And that's when there's no longer the big discussions, Tim, because up to that, people are going, oh yeah, influencers, but who's really in the audience? And are our customers really there? And are they really engaging? And then I show, I won't mention the customer name, but here's customer X, here's customer Y, here's a comment from customer Z. And that's the moment where the penny drops for everyone and they go, wow, this really works.
So I'm very, very impressed with all of this. I mean, it sort of ticks all the boxes of the maturity and the advanced programs that a lot of people are working towards. Anita, you talked about the many markets and obviously being global. So how many markets do you think you're in? I know that there's global influence engagement and sort of global English, but how many markets would you say are mature out of the ones you're trying to activate locally, and how many markets would you say you're in the kind of initial phases that you're trying to get into this kind of always on customer engagement?
I think some market, I have no idea now, just to say numbers. There have been some market areas where they really tried, kind of like the YouTubers several years ago, and it didn't necessarily work because they were not B2B experts. They were really the YouTuber influencers, and we thought that can work, or they tried it, it didn't work. And then for a couple of years they were like, no, it doesn't work. And we had to go through a different learning that what exactly do we mean by influencers. And sometimes we also refer to them as external experts, and they might not have huge amount of followers, like 100,000, but they are really respected within their community. Some of our topics are also niche, and different market areas change. So what we are trying now, as we have a new marketing strategy in the last two years, and really try to tell our complex stories in a much easier way. We implemented and integrated employee thought leadership, employee advocacy, and influencer marketing into those. And first we identify influencers with global knowledge or influence, and then we take the next level. Okay, looking into your market area, who are your internal subject matter experts? And maybe sometimes we even start to build their profile first, because we also know that we can go to the external experts, but when there's no conversation happening, it's just still a video, that not the the company did, but someone else, but you don't get the full benefit.
So you start with the internal experts first, and then build out from there, and then because the external experts can be activated after that, but you need the foundation, like you're saying.
Absolutely. And we also encourage the internal experts that who are the ones, and we look through analytical platform, that who could be a local expert or within their market area, who they should be connected. And let's start there, that, okay, just follow them, make a comment, look at what type of content they are creating, how they are telling their story. So we also have some sort of a relationship before we reach out to those external experts and try to match make them like really in a forced way. That's a little bit more natural. And we have seen that maybe it takes a little bit longer time, but it really pays off.
Yeah, and so I imagine it. I mean, I'm just trying to think about the key challenges now, because you got your program, both of you, to a very, a very desirable place. I think there'll be a lot of brands that would be very envious of the position, but you've obviously got through lots of great hard work and through your partner ecosystem. What are the main challenges for you going forward? Tressa, maybe over to you to answer that.
Going forward, I mean, what I would like to do is grow more influencers into the Ericsson ambassador network, and I know Anita has that goal from a global perspective, also from the BA perspective. So what we try and do is actually each quarter cycle in new influencers, Tem. So we have an extended family, as it were, in the Ericsson ambassador team. So, you know, I was counting there since 2017. We've worked actively with over 20 technology influencers. So that means, you know, 20 voices who are out there advocating for our brand, who know us, who know what we're about, and are very supportive. I want to continue that relationship. I want to build on that relationship. It's now at a partnership level. So I have, for example, Rana van Loon came to me with the idea about doing a mixed reality video. Said, this isn't done. Why don't we do it? I mean, I love that. I want more innovation. I want more, you know, approachability. I love outside in ideas and trying something new. We were the first in Ericsson with a podcast as well. Anita will remember, third-party podcast, but now nearly everybody has a podcast. It's like a newsletter. So, you know, maybe we're in the metaverse next year. I don't know.
Yeah, who yeah, in a couple of years' time we can speak in the metaverse. So my partner, she works for Facebook, so
Okay.
so she can hopefully set us
Meta,
up,
right? Works for Meta.
or Meta, I should be saying. Yeah. So who knows? You know, I love that. So yeah, and I know, Anita, you're very passionate about social media and their importance in organizations. So would you say that that now the results can basically provide the business case for more budget to flow in to grow the scale? Is that obviously the kind of plan and the kind of pathway for you, but not only you, other peers to drive the results and then to get investment in this area, as the kind of future of marketing?
Absolutely. And I think that what we established when it comes to like communication, PR or marketing, we established a relationship and we don't really need the further buy-in. So we know that what we would like to achieve and how to work with the community, how to extend that to new areas, to new people, to really tell the stories in a diverse way or from different angles. One of the maybe not challenges, but what I would really like to take as next steps is connecting some other departments, for example, employer brand or talent acquisition, because I think there's a relationship there and the stories of the future of work, the hybrid work models, what leaders or how talent acquisition is using social to really become a social business, and what it could mean for them working with external experts around some of those topics. How can we hire the talent that we are looking for. We know that it's a really tough market nowadays. When it comes to sales, how can we embed maybe influencer relations to our social selling program? So really extending it. Whenever it comes to analyst relations or PR, there are again, like colleagues who really get it, and they are interacting on social media with journalists, with analyst relations. But there's also a huge potential for other market areas or to really try to incorporate that. So I think the internal education and maturity and how we grow that, sometimes it's a challenge, because sometimes I've been saying the same thing like 10 times, and maybe when Tressa comes in, then they believe it. And if they didn't believe to Tressa, I'm just saying a name now because she's here, then they believe it. So sometimes, you just seem like a broken record, and it takes a little bit of patience, but that's where we always start somewhere. And then when you get the first pilot, the first try, and they see how it works, that's when they start to believe, and that's when we can grow.
Yeah, I think I love the point that you made about that, because actually my next question was going to be about who else you can connect this program to. I love that you talked about talent acquisition. I mean, you've obviously just showed that through your recent social hire. Is it Mordechai? Have I pronounced
Yes.
pronounce their name correctly? Through Diana Adams and the employer branding that you were saying as well is really key. ABM, so the account-based marketing and social selling, was going to be where I was going to go through to this, and even into analyst relations and customer advocacy. And I think that there's a wonderful opportunity with your maturity of your program to connect up to so many different business units. As you say, Ericsson is such a large organization, so there's just a lot of education, a lot of patience, a lot of pilots to be able to achieve that. Is that your 2022 focus of doing that? And if so, how do you go about trying to connect it up? Do you pick the people that have come to you first, or do you find the opportunity and then just initiate that conversation internally?
I think both. Obviously, the pandemic really brought social media to the center. And in 2020, I think all of us were dying because the demand for like our knowledge and services was just overwhelming. We had to pivot from physical events to digital events. Then Facebook boycott happened. It was pretty much like a never-ending issue management and crisis comms. And the teams were really, really stretched. But it also gave us the opportunity to how to work smarter, growing the team, and also how to make sure that we mature, taking also the focus away sometimes from the branded accounts, and really show that through our employees, through the influencer community, through co-creating content, we can be faster to market. Because obviously, when you need to create a PDF, a report, it goes through a committee, people write it, it's another iteration, and it takes like 6 months. If you co-create, and a video is never cheap, whether you do it with an agency, in-house, it takes time. When you co-create, you can be a lot more relevant, faster to market, and it resonates a lot more with the audience, just because the story is told from different angles. And for 2022, obviously, I think it's usually Hootsuite who does our social maturity assessment, and they keep reflecting to us that we are never satisfied at Ericsson, that how far we came. We always say that, oh gosh, we have such a long way to go.
It's good and in times like this, you can recognize achievements, and I know that everybody listening will be very impressed. So hopefully it's one of those times where you can look back and be proud.
Yes, we do, and we do a little bit of celebration, but just when it comes to the ambitions for 2022, we really have high ambitions. And I think some of the challenges, what not just Ericsson, but I think all of us will face is moving from the digital events to hybrid models. And how can you create physical experiences in a safe way, how can you limit people who are there, both the influencer community and internal experts? How can you co-create content when someone is there physically and virtually? Because now we were all equal, everyone was virtual. And how can you work around that one? So I think there are so many nice challenges that we will need to solve and co-solve together. Obviously, we would like to go and work and mature more with both of our internal experts, executives, and all of our programs, and even co-creating more content pieces in the metaverse or in augmented reality.
Yeah, so I guess the message is your job isn't yet done. So there's still a lot of progress that people demand, and obviously you expect for yourselves as well. Tressa, what about you? What does 2022 have in store for influencer marketing and employee advocacy for Ericsson?
Yeah, so this year was my strategy actually to really focus in on marrying the two, as I call it. So really hand picking certain influencers that had a deep knowledge in a certain area. We've had some organizational changes. There's some new heads of departments. So I think it's also referred to as executive profiling. So trying to lift the profile of someone, lift their expertise, and what better way to do that than to marry them with an influencer who already has this audience, who already has this network that is ready and willing to listen. So we've been doing that really successfully. Obviously with Tribal as well, we've been tracking their SSI score, their social selling index score. And we've seen it grow. We've seen the engagement grow. So absolutely a strategy that's working. And recently we were nominated in verdict.co.uk report of having the largest brand share of voice in telecommunications for Q3. So I think our approach is definitely making waves, and it's continue, because sometimes you don't need to fix what's not broken. So continue as is, keep up the momentum. As Anita said, expand into new areas. I love the idea of working more with employer brand, but also translating our new brand, which is Imagine Possible. I think there's a huge potential there as well.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, you've had so many successes that I suppose building upon that scaling is absolutely right. I'd love to ask you one tactical question, which I've been asking a lot of people recently. With the drop in organic social reach on LinkedIn, has that affected your social figures and social engagement, and if so, has it been an issue, or is it just, LinkedIn have changed their algorithms, we've seen a drop in some of the engagement, and that's just how we would explain the results, and then we move on from the current base?
I think the algorithms change every day. And if we would share all the changes with our executives, I don't think they're really interested. So what we can do, and Ericsson, we have one LinkedIn account. We have showcase pages around certain topics, but we don't have market area or local LinkedIn accounts. So we work with global content and geo-targeted localized languages. So we have a LinkedIn strategy. We also see that what works, and we continuously update our LinkedIn strategy, ways of working. We know that now just a regular post doesn't necessarily work. What you also need to mention or involve others to start a conversation. When and how do you work with polls? You also have the booklet option, which the algorithm also prefers on the showcase on the global pages. How do you also work with your employer brand, and how do you show up on LinkedIn? I don't think we really go into that discussion. Obviously, we have been working with organic and paid for a long time, And there are content pieces where we put boost budget that we really want to resonate. We also encourage our employees, executives, that whenever they can, they should not reshare the branded content, but either comment to tell their stories. So we continuously update our internal community, both the people who are responsible for global accounts and the internal experts, that what works, what doesn't work, and keep experimenting.
Okay.
But just an organic drop is, I don't think.
So it hasn't affected any of the individual execs or subject matter experts to feel like they're putting in more effort to reach the same kind of people, because I know that that's been some of the feeling on LinkedIn recently. I just wonder whether it's something that showed up, or whether everyone was quite philosophical and just building on the engagements in their relevant audience. Has that been something you've noticed, Teresa? From
when you create content, sometimes it drops. Sometimes it's the time of the day when you post. Sometimes I would get like really good engagement, and then once I posted on Friday afternoon, I was like, I didn't kill myself because I didn't get like 20 likes, or I don't know, 56. What I usually get. I think it's really the long term what we measure, and not necessarily each and every single post. The community is there. If the executives have their connection either with customers, with external community, and extend it from the echo chamber of just the Ericsson colleagues, I think that's a lot more important than the actual likes. We always, of course, encourage and really like the comments and try to get engaging content pieces, but I don't think we had any of those discussions that it was like a major drop.
No, I think it's really interesting to hear your perspective on that, and thank you. I think you're absolutely right. Last question: what advice would you have for anyone starting off influence marketing or employee advocacy, that hasn't had the benefit of 9 years of doing employee advocacy, and maybe sort of 4 to 5 years of influencer marketing? Teresa, if you could go first, it would be great to hear your thoughts.
Sure. I would say start small. I think doing the pilot was quite helpful in a large organization, because you're less exposed when you don't really know how it's going to go, and you have nervous executives and nervous PR people in the background. So I would say start. So I would say don't start with a big event with 4 influencers flying in from different parts of the world.
So don't do what you did, which was amazing, but sounded stressful.
Super stressful. But I've confided with Beverly recently on this, and she said they were also stressed on their end. So
yeah. But it's made you the person you are and the experience you have today. But don't do that if you're somebody else.
I wouldn't recommend it. I think start small, try and experiment. I would say, target somebody. I would say watch from afar, see what kind of pieces people are posting, see what content they're interested in, see if you like the direction of what they're posting, that it resonates with you, with your brand, with your business objectives. So be clever, kind of watch from the sidelines. What PR people do for media, what are they posting about? What do they like? Similar tactic and an approach, and just try it. I mean, it's super fun, and you get so much creative ideas, you get so much energy. There's no way some of the things that are produced by influencers would have been produced in-house to that quality, turned around so fast. So definitely I recommend it, but maybe start small.
Great. And Anita, I know we're coming to time, so would love to get a piece of advice from you.
It's pretty much the same. I think looking to, since Teresa commented on the influencer community, I will take the in-house experts. Also look for some people who are already active, and they are either networkers, they are commenting, engaging with other communities, and they also have a strong expertise, or maybe a different viewpoint, or something that stands out from the others. So look for the odds, and look into the influencer community, as Teresa suggested, and also just try to introduce them to each other. Just reach out that we have something coming up and I would like to explore ideas. This is what we have been planning. What is your thought? Would you be open to collaborate, talk to our expert, and let's see where it goes? And it could be 1 to 2 people, and really start that experiment and build on that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining. I know we're coming to time. Thank you everyone for listening. It's been a great
We had
conversation.
a fun, right?
And loads of comments. Everyone started talking about the metaverse as well. We really kicked off a conversation about that. So I think that we're going to see Ericsson doing all this kind of meta, augmented reality, mixed reality, physical, virtual. So we'll look to you to lead on that globally. So I think when we next have a conversation, we'll expect to see some examples around that. So thank you so much to both of you for coming on, and really enjoyed the chat. And we'll end here, and we'll share lots of snippets of this piece of content over the coming weeks. So thank you to you both.
Thank you so much, Tim, for having us, and thank you for the whole community for joining and all the comments.
Pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
So you can stay on. It is